Check, check, 1, 2. Coming through. Okay. Think that'll do.
I'm going to call her shortcomings.
Thanks again for being here.
Should just be able to talk into it, and yes, we're getting it.
Just have to lean into it, don't have to touch it.
Shouldn't have to touch it, and if you would like to mute it, you can press this. It's live.
Okay.
So,
If I feel a curse word explosion.
exactly.
Yeah.
Or she's lying.
If there's anything you need to mutter
Yeah.
or shuffle around.
Gotcha. All right. I can do that.
And I'm right back here, so I'll be here for support if anything goes
Okay.
awry.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you.
I'm also running this on a live stream that will go to the library's Instagram, or it will go to our Facebook and YouTube pages. So if you guys want to share any of this with anyone going forward, you can find it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. You're welcome. Now I've lost Kristen. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, and welcome to our second night of candidate forums. My name is Michelle Walchalk, and I currently serve as your local Washington County League president. The League is a nonpartisan organization and dedicated to encouraging informed and active participation in government. And our group does not endorse any candidates or any political parties. And we're really proud to host these candidate forums this evening for you. Now, our League mission consists of 4 powerful words. Our mission is to empower voters and defend democracy. And tonight, we'll get a chance to do both. We look to be empowering voters with the opportunity to hear directly from candidates that are seeking the offices of Circuit Court Judge in our Division 4, which is Washington and Madison counties. And in the contested races, there are other districts, but we have contested races in districts 2, 3, and 8. 3 and 8 being the juvenile judges. Tonight, I'm asking your help in our second part of our mission to defend democracy right here in our state by signing our ballot initiative. The League's ballot initiative is the ballot initiative to save ballot initiatives, hence the title, Save AR, democracy. We look to save our democracy by strengthening and streamlining the process outlined in our state constitution for our access to direct democracy. We need enough signatures to get this critically important measure on the ballot for our November election. So please stop by our table in the back before you leave tonight to learn more how you can support us and sign the petition if you haven't yet. Your local league is 100% volunteer powered. So if you are a board member, a former board member, a committee member, a regular member, if you don't mind standing or raising your hand so we can see you tonight. Linda, down here. Thank you for your time and dedication to democracy and the voters of Washington County. Now, we're all here tonight because our next election is on March 3rd, and it's not just a primary election. Tonight, we're going to hear from the candidates in nonpartisan judicial races, and it's really important to recognize that this upcoming March 3rd election, all nonpartisan judicial races, school millage tax rate extensions, local school board directors, city bond proposals, all of those will be fully decided upon. That's it, no runoffs in November. So please help us to get people out to vote. Let your neighbors know, let your friends, family all across the state know how important the choices that they make in this election and how they'll have a direct impact on our local communities. Tonight we've got our first set of candidates till about 6:20, 6:25, and they're vying for the nonpartisan position, like I said, circuit judge, District 4. No.
Yes.
I had a
District
tip
4,
back on
Division 2.
Division 2. Thank you.
It's hard.
We've got Wendy Howerton, Kristen Pellick, and Seth Creed here. And then we'll have a second set of candidates that we'll hear from them about 6:30, 6:35 to around 7:20. And they're for Districts 3 and 8. I've got it backwards in my tape. Divisions 3 and 8. And those are our juvenile court positions. We plan to have a bit of time to mingle after each panel as time allows. We have a candidate forum style. It's not a debate. The candidates will have equal time of 3 minutes to answer each question, but not necessarily talk directly to each other. During the forum, if you in the audience think of a question you'd like all candidates to answer, please write them down on the index cards. We'll be kind of walking on the sides there and pass it down to the edge aisle. We'll pick them up and use them if time allows and they're germane tonight. We recognize that and understand that judges must remain impartial, so the type of questions that they may answer can look and sound a little different from typical public offices. So, candidates, we're going to try our best to screen our questions and make sure that they're all appropriate for you, but we realize if there's something that we didn't get right, please let us know in the way we ask it. And thank you, candidates, for your dedication to public service by running for office and spending your time here this evening with us. Our moderator tonight, again, is Katie Teague. She is a county extension agent with the U of A System Division of Agriculture, Research, and Extension Office. We appreciate her work with us over the years and for our local Washington County community. So thank you, Ms. Teague. I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, and we can get started.
Again, candidates, we'll have 3 minutes to respond, but we're going to start with just opening remarks. Introduce yourselves and whatever you'd like for us to know about you. Again, your timekeeper is Glenda Patterson. She's a rock star. So she'll hold up when you have a minute left, and then she'll stop you, and we'll stop you if we need to. So we'll try and keep, and then again, we're going to rotate. So I'll try and nobody's in the hot seat first every time. But Seth, you want to start and just tell us a little bit about yourself?
And how long do we have?
2 minutes.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Seth Creed. I appreciate the league and the library and for everyone here for showing up. First of all, can everybody hear me in the back? Okay. I'm a value-driven man, and I have 3 core values that form the bedrock of my foundation. One, I'm a Christian. To me, being a Christian means that I have a moral compass, and it leads the way that I live my life. But more importantly, as it relates to this position, it provides me a backbone to do what is right, no matter what type of outside pressure I may have. And that means that if there's something that comes before me in the court, and it might go against my personal faith, I will rule on the rule of law, and I will not let my personal feelings or my faith jeopardize my rulings. 2, I'm a family man. My wife and I have 3 young children that we are raising in West Fork. And we live by a motto that is on our refrigerator door that says our mark on this earth is our children. And it's a daily reminder to me what real life is about. It's not about my ego or my legacy. It's about our next generation. 3, I believe in hard work. When I was 10 years old, my father lost his job, and he started his own machine shop. And I went to work for him when the sun wasn't up, and I worked 40-hour work weeks for him when I was 15 years old. I was a collegiate athlete. I played soccer in college, and I was a captain the last 2 years. I played semi-professional soccer. I was also a captain. I've done an Ironman. I've done the Pikes Peak Ascent. I don't tell you these things for bragging rights. I tell you these things because I believe in the saying, how you do anything is how you do everything. 3, or my background, legal background, very quickly. I'm a career public servant, and I'm the only candidate in this race that is a public servant. For the last 9 years, I've been with the U.S. Attorney's Office, and I defend it anytime it gets sued, and that is complex civil litigation, and is the same type of complex civil litigation that Division II currently handles. I was a prosecutor before that for 5 years. I have extensive criminal jury trials, civil jury trials in state and federal court. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Creed. Ms. Howerton, you want to give us an introduction?
Yes, obviously Wendy Howerton here. Just to tell you a little bit about me, because what I like to tell people is get to know your candidate. Obviously, these are nonpartisan races, so what is important is what kind of work ethic, character, value that these candidates have. But I grew up in Jesseville, Arkansas, which is very tiny. I tell people it's slightly larger than your water bottle here. With 6 brothers and sisters and a mom and dad in a 2-bedroom, 1-bath home with no heat and no AC. I was able to put myself through undergrad with a track and a cross-country scholarship and an academic scholarship. I ran track and cross-country all through college, graduated, came to law school, paid my way through law school, and I've been here for 20 years. I've been here for almost 25. I've been practicing law for 20 years. In those 20, I'm the only candidate who can tell you I've handled each and every type of case that this bench will cover, which as a voter would be important to me. I'm also the only candidate who can tell you I've had a civil jury trial in the state court. That's what this bench covers, also very important. As a voter, those are things I'd like to know. I have spent 20 years protecting our constitutional rights. I started off as a public defender. I opened up Howerton Law Firm, and my first year, I had about 85% of my clients were Hispanic clients in this area who couldn't maybe navigate the legal system. After that, like I said, I opened my private practice, and I've handled everything that you can think of, whether it's divorce, property line disputes, illegal exaction, commercial litigation, contract disputes, evictions, involuntary commitments, protective order hearings, you name it. I tell you that because, like I said, that's what this bench will cover. Right now, I represent every single taxpayer in the state of Arkansas. So if you pay taxes in the state of Arkansas, I'm your attorney. I represent you to recover our $10 to $14 million that were taken to bribe politicians and to enrich an out-of-state health care company. A lot of you may not know that, but that has gone on, and I'm the one doing that. So thank you so much. Love your vote in March.
Ms. Pollock?
Thank you. Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Michelle, for having us and for the library providing this opportunity. I'm Kristen Pollock. I'm a candidate for Circuit Judge Division II. I am a lifelong resident of Northwest Arkansas, born and raised. My mother's family's been in Arkansas since before we were a state, and this is my home. I have spent the last 27 years practicing law here and fighting for everyday Arkansans. I've tried matters in hundreds of cases, not on paper, but in actual courtrooms across the state. Week after week, year after year, jury trials, bench trials, I've done it. I've helped parents navigate custody, workers who are struggling to be heard or to be paid, small businesses defend what they have built. These aren't just court cases to me. These are people and people's livelihoods. And when they walk into a courtroom, they deserve to have a judge on the bench who's been where they've been, who has been fighting, who understands what the impact of the judicial decisions have on their families and their lives. I believe that justice shouldn't be abstract. It should be real. It should be accessible. And it should be consistent. I'm the only candidate who is currently working in the circuit courts of our state on each of the subject matters that this division will hear, which are civil, probate, and domestic relations. I'm working at the volume and intensity that this job would require. It's not a part-time job. I've been in court this week, so I'm out there asking for your vote and I'm campaigning for this job, but I'm out there working too, representing my clients every day. I've proven that I have integrity that's necessary for public service. I've been appointed by governors from both parties. I've served you as a Special Associate Justice on the Arkansas Supreme Court. I've chaired the Commission on Child Abuse, Rape, and Domestic Violence, and I was actually appointed to 2 terms on that commission. You know, I've taken that love of public service and I've dedicated it to my community. And so I want to ask for your vote. And thank you for this opportunity for us to do that today.
You bet. Thank you so much. So Ms. Howerton, we'll start with you. Again,
Okay.
this is now 3 minutes
Okay.
responses, and we'll just rotate through. Maybe just kind of overarching, can you share with us a little bit about your judicial philosophy, just in plain English?
Sure.
Plain.
Yeah, sure. What I've been saying 4 months now is so that people can understand a little bit about me, is that justice should be justice for all. When I was younger, I think a lot of times my family will say, okay, you have your justice hat on. You have your justice hat on. Because I have a very strong passion for justice and what is right and what is fair and how it's supposed to be done. And I grew up, like I told you earlier, very poor, and I think that that impacted me, and that is why I have such a passion for that. There's a story I've told people many times, and some of you may have heard it. When we were younger, my dad didn't have any work, and we couldn't afford the rent. So my mom and dad made an agreement with the landlord to work off the rent. And we did. That meant all the kids had to do the work. If you're from a family, it's a big family, and you lived in rural Arkansas, you understand. So we would move the cattle from one field to the other. We would weed the garden, sow the garden, pick the fruit, all this, everything you can imagine. At the end of the month, we got a bill for the rent. And that felt like a huge injustice. And maybe it impacted me so much because I was the one doing that work, along with my brothers and sisters. And Mom and Dad got into an argument, and Mom said, this isn't fair. This isn't fair. We've already done the work. If they wanted us to pay, that was one thing, but we already did it. And Dad said, what are we going to do? We don't have a choice. We can't afford an attorney. And when I heard those words, that impacted me greatly. And I, as a 6th grader, heard, if you want to have a voice in the legal system, you have to buy it. And that's just not how it's supposed to be. So, like I said, I have a passion for justice. Everyone in my court's going to have a voice, no matter if it's a pro se, no matter what your last name is, no matter who you're connected to. If you come into my court, I'm going to listen. That's my job. I'm going to pay attention to your facts, to the circumstances, to the witnesses, because I have attention to detail, which is a little annoying to my husband sometimes. He's a forest guy, and I'm going to look at all those little leaves. But I think that combination and bringing that to the bench is what makes me right for this position. Like I said, I've been working for 20 years protecting your rights, and taking that coupled with my passion for justice to this bench, I think is that's what I'm, as a voter, that's what I would care about in Washington and Madison counties. Thank you.
Thank you. So Ms. Pollock, again, the question was, can you just share your judicial philosophy and kind of in everyday terms that we can all understand?
Yes, thank you for that question. You know, I've worked since 2017 as a member of the Access to Justice Foundation Board, where we administer grants throughout the state of Arkansas to our legal service providers and to other stakeholders to make sure that everyone has access to the courtroom. And it's been a very meaningful position for me because what it's shown me is the gaps in our justice system, in our civil justice system. You know, there are disabled veterans, there are victims of domestic violence, there are folks that do not have housing, that don't have lawyers, cannot afford lawyers, and cannot get their stories heard in front of a judge. And so that's been something that's been very close to my heart, and I will carry that to the bench. I also have been not just serving and administering grants and hearing from people, I've done the work. In 2009, I was selected as Pro Bono Attorney of the Year, which was I was very proud of that because, you know, it's important for me to support my family too. And so when you do pro bono work, you aren't getting paid. But that's part of my belief that as a lawyer in a helping profession, that I should spend a good portion of my practice helping those who can't afford my services. So that is one thing that I will bring into court in my judicial philosophy. Another thing that is important to me is making sure that the rule of law is upheld, that being a judge is a position of dignity, not just authority, that people will not only follow the law, but believe in it. And so I will bring that into the courtroom as well.
Super, thank you so much. So Mr. Creed, same question. What is your judicial philosophy?
Yeah, thank you. I think I would break it down into three components. First, justice, ensuring that justice is carried out in my courtroom. Trust is carried out in my courtroom, and order is carried out in my courtroom. So first, starting with justice. I posted a video this morning on my social media, and I encourage you to go watch it, but I'll kind of tell you what I said in that video. I said the words justice and integrity are thrown around a lot in these judicial races, all right? They're kind of thrown around without much meaning sometimes. It's kind of like when you tell someone, I love you so much, it kind of loses its meaning, right? But I told you what justice means to me in this video. And to me, justice can be boiled down simply to ensuring that each person is given what they are owed. And I said in the video, if you come into my courtroom, I don't care how much money you have, I don't care what your last name is, I don't care where you're from, who you know, or what you look like. If you come to my courtroom, you're going to be given what is owed to you, nothing less and nothing more. And if you ever found yourself in a legal dispute with someone with a well-known last name or deep pockets, you're going to be treated exactly the same as them. And it's easy to say. I understand that it's easy to say. And the motto of my campaign is ask around. And y'all can probably play a drinking game with how many times I'm going to say ask around tonight. It's because I believe firmly in my reputation. All right, I have the backbone to do that. I'm not just saying words. 2, trust. I think trust is a very important thing, and a lot of people question the trust of our courts, not here locally and nationally, with how politicized our court system is. And I think it's very important to ensure that our courtrooms and our judges are trusted. And that's one, having that integrity and that reputation, that transparency in your courtroom, and I believe I will carry that out. 2, order. I'm one of those people that believes discipline equals freedom and order prevents chaos. And I think if I have order in my courtroom and I have clear issued orders and I issue decisions quickly, that it will prevent chaos in the courtroom, and litigants will not have unnecessary expenses, and cases will not be prolonged unnecessarily. I will bring parties in early on, and I will set firm deadlines, and I'll have the reputation that attorneys will know that when we set these deadlines, they are firm. When we set a trial deadline, they are firm, and you better have a very compelling reason for it to be continued. Thank you.
So Ms. Pollock, we'll start with you this go round. How will you ensure that a fair and impartial jury is seated to hear each case if you were elected?
I wouldn't expect that there would be a lot of variance in the answer to this question, but one of the jobs of a judge is to make sure that the attorneys who are appearing before them in a jury selection are asking the right kind of questions to make sure that the right jurors are selected for a case. And so that goes into asking questions of each potential juror as to whether they might have implicit bias or they might have explicit bias. For example, are you in a criminal case, you might ask a juror if they are married to law enforcement or they have family that's law enforcement, or if they've been a victim of a crime before. And perhaps those folks wouldn't be the right juror for a criminal case, but they might be exactly the right juror for a case that involves a collection or a land dispute. And so if the attorneys are not, who are usually tasked with the job of asking voir dire questions, are not doing that sufficiently, then the judge can always step in and ask those questions. So that's one way I would do it. I would also make sure, and many, if not all of the judges do this in connection with the county clerk, they send out juror questionnaires to try to learn as much relevant information about a juror before they come into court. And that also helps select jurors for a trial. I will listen carefully to the answers that each juror gives and try to assess whether or not there's any reason to excuse them. But I tell you what, we all have a right and an obligation to serve as jurors. So don't be thinking you're going to get out of jury duty just because you answer a question a certain way. It's a privilege, and it's a privilege that I hope each of you will exercise should you be summoned. Thank you.
Thanks for the plug for jury duty. Yep, that's good. Mr. Greed, again, the question was will you ensure that a fair and impartial jury is seated to hear each case if you're elected?
Yeah, thank you. I think Kristen articulated that very well, and I think she covered all the bases. And there's one thing I've learned in life, and my wife would dispute this, is to know when to shut up and be quiet. I don't have an ego, and I don't like listening to myself talk. The only thing I'll add to what Kristen said is that I have significant experience questioning jurors, all right? And I have had motions to strike, I have defended motions to strike, and so I have that experience and I have that knowledge of how that works. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Ms. Howerton, what would you like to add again? How will you
Yes.
ensure that a fair and impartial jury is seated to hear each case if you are elected?
Yes, they're not wrong. That's exactly right. That is what it entails. And so what little bit I can add is occasionally in the jury trials in the state level that I've been in, there are jurors, potential jurors, who will come in and they may have a surgery scheduled or a vacation scheduled during that time frame, and it's always a difficult position for a judge to be in to decide whether that is significant reason to excuse a juror. Because obviously, if it's a health consideration, that's, calls for a different analysis maybe. But I've been in a situation where the judge did not excuse a juror who wanted very much to be able to go on that vacation they had scheduled. And we ended up having to substitute that juror at the last moment. So those situations, when someone is adamant they do not want to be there, sometimes that's not the right juror either. And so those are things that also I would have to consider. And, like my opponents have said, weighing those circumstances in favor of that particular defendant or plaintiff or whoever having a fair trial and an unbiased trial by a juror, and weighing that with the obligation and the duties of all of us to be there and to act as a juror is a fine line to toe. So I have significant experience with that. I too have done the voir dire for many different cases, whether it's criminal or civil. And as Ms. Pollock was saying, you want the attorneys to expose those biases or whatnot. But as a judge, you have to be very insightful, I guess, to ask those questions should they not be fleshed out. So, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So, Mr. Creed, you're up. What do you see as the most important challenges to the justice system in the entire state? So thinking big picture, and what might you personally do to impact those challenges or problems?
I think going back to earlier, I think probably the two most pressing challenges are probably trust in the judicial system and cases being delayed for too long. Now, Judge Threet has a very efficient docket. There's really not much that I would change in his docket. but there are some fresh ideas that I would bring to the judicial system in the state court. I practice primarily in federal court. 95 or more of my docket is in federal court. Federal court's a little bit of a different ballgame than state court. It's a much heavier motion practice, and the deadlines are set in stone. When I mean they're set in stone, they're set in stone. I practice in front of Judge Brooks primarily, and those deadlines are very rarely continued. I would bring into state court what are called case management hearings, and I would probably start off with the more complex, high-dollar civil cases and see how it's going. But what you do in these case management hearings is you set them very early on in the case, right after the defendant has answered the lawsuit. And you bring the parties in. We can do it via Zoom to lower costs for the litigants. But you can first of all, you can resolve any issues that are out there or discovery disputes that might have already encountered, making sure there's not going to be discovery disputes as much as possible. But you get your calendars out, and you set the deadlines for the discovery and for the expert witnesses' disclosures and for the dispositive motion deadlines and for the motion in limine deadline and for the trial deadline. And the lawyers will know that when we set this trial date, and they will tell me, do we need 8 months to try it? Do you need 10 months to try it? Do you need a year to try it? When that trial date is set, the trial date is set, and you have to have a very compelling reason for it to be continued. Again, it goes back to the order prevents chaos. There's going to be order in my courtroom. There's going to be very clear orders and structure in my court. It is unfair to litigants to have cases be prolonged for years upon years, and I plan to change that. I think going back to the trust, it is making sure that you are doing what is right in every single case, that you're not showing any type of implicit bias. And look, we're human, we have implicit bias, but I think I have that backbone to make sure that I'm doing right in every single case, and that people with the last names of the corporations that are in town, they're not getting any favor in my courtroom. Thank you.
So again, Ms. Howerton, the question was, what do you see as the most important challenges to the justice system? And this is thinking statewide, big picture, and what might you personally do to impact those problems or challenges?
Yeah, so, something that I have lived by is justice delayed is justice denied. And that is just simply true. I have had many cases where one reason or another, justice has been pushed off. And I think what Mr. Creed is referring to is a scheduling order and a scheduling hearing in the state court, which is what this bench covers. And so we have those deadlines, and I fully intend to implement scheduling orders and scheduling deadlines and scheduling hearings. Sometimes you have omnibus hearings and criminal matters where you will also be able to get the attorneys together and discuss how long someone will need, how many witnesses they anticipate calling. Do we need a hearing set prior to, do we have to have a motions in limine hearing? All of these type of considerations in any type of trial or hearing or case. That helps move those cases along. That is very, very important. I've had a case that has gone on for 7 to 8 years, and I won't say it's any one specific reason that it's drug on, but I have, in the middle of that case, had 3 different people pass away. That is a big problem when one of them is your investigator and holds all the knowledge, right? And it's also a problem when one of them is a party, and now we have to open an estate, which causes a further delay in that matter. So now we've opened an estate, now we're substituting that party for the estate, we're getting a personal representative, or depending on where where she died, if she doesn't live here, we have to deal with that particular state's estate process. So it is very important to move the docket along and to be efficient, and I plan to do so. On top of that, I think just encouraging communication between attorneys. I can tell you, after having been in this system for 20 plus years, after COVID, we've really had some, I would say death to communication between the parties and their attorneys. A lot of times we might be able to work matters out if we can encourage those involved to communicate. Sometimes you just get on the phone and you say, well, hey, have you considered calling Mr. Smith and saying, hey, Mr. Smith, this is what I intend to do? And that can solve a lot of problems and also keep the court running efficiently. So I will be encouraging those things as well. In some of the cases, maybe an ad litem attorney is appropriate. Maybe not in all of them. And those are considerations. Maybe there's a mediation that's appropriate, but also not in all of them. I won't be enforcing those. I won't be, those won't be mandatory in my court. Some courts they are, but then you're looking at driving up expenses for specific parties that maybe don't have it. So those are all considerations that I am planning to address when I get there. Thank you.
Thank you. So again, Ms. Pollack, one more time, it's what do you see as the most important challenges to the justice system statewide, and what might you personally do to impact those challenges or problems?
Okay, thank you for that question. So the two biggest issues that I see affecting the justice system statewide right now are the use of artificial intelligence, both by litigants and by practitioners in the courtroom, and access to justice. In 2024 and 25, I was elected as president of the Arkansas Bar Association. And so statewide, the leadership evaluated the risk to the judicial system by AI and the use of AI by people who were using it in an open system where, it was generative and it was producing hallucinations and false information that was then being relied upon by litigants and sometimes by attorneys. How many of y'all have used ChatGPT or another AI tool? Yeah. Well, lawyers are using them too, and potential litigants are using them. And a lot of times what those applications do is they tell you what they think you want to hear, or they search the whole world and they find an answer that may not actually be in compliance with Arkansas law. And so the Bar Association, we worked really hard to pull together professors, practitioners, technology experts to advise on rule changes in the rules of professional responsibility and conduct, as well as just practical tools for folks to consider when they are drafting pleadings or preparing to go to court, so that they don't sprout and spout a bunch of garbage to a judge, because that's an ethical violation. You are supposed to go to court and present to the judge actual cases and actual rules to rely upon. And there have been attorneys across the state, unfortunately, who have relied on poor applications and have not checked their sites, and they've failed their clients and the system. And so the other aspect of that is that you can also use artificial intelligence if you're a bad actor to manipulate evidence, recordings, which call into question the veracity of those materials and make it difficult to reach a just decision. So we're going to have to stay on top of that. Access to justice, I mentioned in my introduction, but that's making sure that each person who has a complaint, who has a valid cause of action, can actually get through the courthouse doors. It's cumbersome to do so without a lawyer, even though every person should be able to bring their case to the court, when they're unrepresented, they're not trained and they don't have access to the same information that lawyers do, and so there tends to be sort of a clogging up of the system in that case. And as a judge, I'm going to have to keep in mind and make sure that I am balancing the needs of the underrepresented or unrepresented persons, and also the need for the docket to move efficiently. And that's always a tension, but it's on the forefront of my mind.
Super, thank you so much. You all have talked and shared a little bit in your introductions and even some of your responses about different organizations and pro bono work, but will you share a little bit more about your civic activities and community involvement? Ms. Howerton, we'll start with you.
Sure. So kind of this bleeds right into the previous question, actually. I am currently sitting on the Professional Conduct Committee for the entire state of Arkansas. So, and I'm on the executive committee. So when an attorney commits an ethics violation in the state of Arkansas, there are 4 different panels that they come in front of. I am one of them. I am on one of those panels. This last year, I was elected to be the chair of that panel. I take it very serious. I'm very passionate about it. So we had one of our first cases that came through the committee there involving AI and an attorney who actually submitted that to a court. And so anyway, my panel did not address that specific one, but I will say that is something that we've also, as a committee, have discussed and are prepared going forward, because attorneys have the obligation to check those briefs, to check that information, those cases that that AI might generate, just like we have for years had the obligation to check when we say to our legal clerk, hey, would you take and file this? And that clerk accidentally puts it in a filing cabinet, and you meant file it with the court system, and it didn't get filed. Those are on the attorney, so just like that. But as a part of that ethics committee is what I call it. It's like I said, when an attorney violates those ethics rules, they come in front of our panel, and I've been doing that for 3 years now, and I very much, like I said, enjoy doing that. I am currently the chair, so that means I'm the one who might hand down those decisions. That is an unpaid position. Somebody asked me that. Shocker, I'm sure. But I was appointed to do that and handle that because that is a means of protecting all of you from an attorney who may not uphold those fiduciary duties. I'm also a track and a cross-country coach because why not? I started the track program in a little tiny school in East Fayetteville called St. Joe's. And I've coached their track and their cross-country program for 8, almost 9 years. It is near and dear to my heart. It is, obviously, that's how I got to where I was in life, but it is an opportunity to invest in our children and to give those children some confidence and a positive role model. Because if it weren't for my coach when I was younger, and he was also my youth pastor, I might not have made it to where I am. Additionally, I coach the Fayetteville High School mock trial team, and we are currently in the middle of that right now. I am on the Lions Club. I help out with that. I've helped out with the M&N, if I can say it. M&N Augustine. Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you. Need a little water. So there's all sorts of events like this that I think probably most of us have helped with, but I think the most near and dear to my heart is probably being a track and a cross-country coach. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So again, Ms. Pollock, you described a few things before, but a chance to expand on your civic activities and community involvement.
Thank you. So I'm a joiner. I always have been, and I usually try to seek out some kind of leadership role so that I can sort of control the impact that I have on organizations. I kind of made a list while Wendy was talking. It's been when I started off in private practice at my law firm, which is Miller Butler, in 2003, it was really important to me to establish myself in the community more as a practitioner, but also to meet people, right? And to be able to earn trust from folks so that they would come to me when they have a problem. And so I've done work with Faith in Action. I've done work with Samaritan House. I've volunteered for the Northwest Arkansas Food Bank. We have a shredding event every year. I am a member of my sorority's alumni association. I volunteered with and raised money for the Children's Safety Centers. I have volunteered and participated in barbecue contests for Peace at Home, the domestic violence shelter here in Northwest Arkansas. I've been a member of the Junior League of Northwest Arkansas. I'm a sustainer there. I was president of the chair of the Arkansas School of Law's Alumni Society. I volunteered to coach a mock trial team at the University of Arkansas, so I helped undergraduates prepare for competitions. I have also, I've got 3 boys, so I found myself on the executive committee of PAC 854 Cub Scouts. That was a learning experience, but it was wonderful. I also, volunteer with my kids' stuff, their homerooms, the stuff at church, the Christmas pageants, stuff that you just find yourself doing. But I'm deeply rooted in this community. This is where my family is. I have my in-laws and my mom and my sister are here, and I'm so grateful, but I'm responsible and accountable to them. And so making this community better is important to me, and I've been doing it my whole career.
Thank you again, Mr. Creed, and describe your civic activities and community involvement.
Yeah, unfortunately, being with the United States Attorney's Office, I cannot be nominated or appointed to any of these types of panels. Being at the U.S. Attorney's Office makes life kind of difficult for me, especially makes life difficult for me with this campaign. I'm pretty limited with what I can do. In terms of civic duties and volunteer, I'll be fully transparent with you. I mean, I have done mock trial help with the law school. I help out with Judge Comstock does a civics deal with the schools down in Fort Smith where they're doing mock trials. I think they're going to try to get that up here as well. I have done that, but my life revolves around my children. And look, you can always make time for things, but I've made time for my kids, and that's been my priority. Our youngest just turned 4. Our middle just turned 6, and our oldest is 7 years old. So life has been very busy for me, but again, it's not an excuse. I should be volunteering more in this community. Prior to that, I listened a while back, I don't know if it was a podcast or what, but someone said the best thing you can do for your kids is get them into volunteer service. And this, running for this campaign it's been a God calling thing to me. I have grown as a person. My kids have grown as people. They are looking people in the eye. They are shaking their hands. But we have volunteered a lot, and my kids have volunteered a lot. And it's important for them to do those things. And this is one of the things that it has forced us into doing it. And it's one of those things that I look forward to doing for them because they we did several things to where we're going out and picking out Christmas presents for kids in need. And of course, they're picking out everything for themselves, and you're like, we're not here for you. We're here for these other kids, and so it's a learning process for them to realize that they are very fortunate in the life that they live, and they need to realize that there are people out there that have very rough lives, and they don't get Christmas presents unless people in this community stand up for them. Thank you all very much.
Again, Michelle, when she began, explained this is a nonpartisan race for our judges in Arkansas. And so there is a challenge in balancing being an independent judge and an elected candidate. So how do you preserve, and again, this has been mentioned, but it's just a chance to expand, how do you preserve the integrity of the court against political and then as well as financial influence? And again, it's just an opportunity to expand. So Ms. Pollack, I think.
Okay. That's a great question, and I have many thoughts and many feelings, and I have been very outspoken and shared them, and my friends and family know this. I do have opinions, many. Now, I knew exactly what the constraints would be when I made the decision to run for judge, because when you run for a circuit judge position in Arkansas, you are giving up your ability to speak as freely as you might otherwise want to on issues that may be very important to you. But I was willing to sacrifice that because I do believe that the people of Washington and Madison County deserve a judge who has all of the life experience and who's been out there every week fighting for them. So I will be keeping my mouth shut. I will be working on less public expressions of thoughts and feelings. But I will tell you that being in a nonpartisan race has been a gift for me because I have been in rooms that I maybe never, ever would have gone into. Because when you're campaigning for a nonpartisan position, you go to the Republican committee meetings, you go to the senior Democrats, you go to the young Republican meetings, you go to the young Democrat meetings, and you hear what is being discussed in those rooms. And it is surprising because sometimes they're talking about the same things. Especially what matters to them locally. And that's been a gift because I think it's easy for us to become just very disheartened and downright sad about the state of our community and the civility and our ability to dialogue. And so I've really thought that was a gift. And so win or lose, I'll take that with me, and I think it'll make me a better lawyer.
Thank you. So again, Mr. Creed, in terms of balancing being an independent judge and elected official, the question was, how do you preserve the integrity of the court against political and financial influence?
Yeah, so breaking down into the two parts of the political and the financial. U.S. attorneys is a very difficult job to get, and I contacted a very prominent attorney around here to see if he would make a call for me. And he goes, Seth, you know what your greatest attribute is? You're a normal person. And it was a very strange thing to hear. But I look back in private practice, I was in one of those big, tall building firms, and throughout my career, and I've worked with a lot of great people, so everybody I've worked with, I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about the other person. There are egos. There are a lot of narcissistic attorneys. A lot of attorneys were spoon-fed their entire life, and they lived a different life than me. I'm a normal person. The political aspect of this is very easy for me. I am very apolitical. I have some feelings, I have opinions on things, but that's an easy decision for me. I'm a normal person. I'm not in the trenches on either side. Financial. I hesitate to say this, but I've never looked at my opponent's financials, but I've had my buddies tell me, even though I tell them I don't care what their financials are, but if you look to their financials, because my buddies tell me, they are out raising you 10-fold, 20-fold. You've got to raise more money. I hate the fundraising aspect of this. I hate the fact that judicial candidates can fundraise. And again, I have not looked. I have no idea who has donated to them. But think about who donates to a judicial race. It's people who expect favors. It's lawyers, and it's the parties and the corporations that get sued. All right? That's who donates. And family, if you have some money. So we have implicit biases, right? And we are human. And I'd like to tell you that I have the backbone that if someone donated $7,000 to my campaign and a case came before me and it was a close call, that I would set that aside. But I know that I'm human. And I know that I have these implicit biases and I have these flaws. So what's the one thing you can do to 100% guarantee that you're not going to have that bias is you don't go asking money for them. I don't know what the answer is. I wish there could be a change for judicial candidates because it just sets it up for corruption. I'm not saying my opponents will do that. I'm just saying I know that I'm human and I know that I have flaws and I'm going to put myself in the best position to where I don't have any issues on down the road.
Katie, I do think I think we have to say, just to clarify, and I'm sure Seth didn't mean to lead this out, but judicial candidates are prohibited by the canons of judicial conduct from asking for money. So I don't believe any of us would ever ask somebody for money, and we don't look at our own reports.
We're not allowed to.
We are
The ethics
prohibited
rules don't
from
allow
doing
that.
that.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, I was going to address that, actually.
Well, you have an opportunity now.
Oh, yeah, I'm glad she did.
So again, the question was, how do you preserve the integrity of the court against political and financial influence?
Yes, so just because now I get a chance to talk, that is correct, what Ms. Pollock was saying. We are not allowed to look at those. So you could give me $5 or you could steal $5 from me. I won't know. But I will say I have been blessed to have a large family, and I have people that are on both sides of the political world in my family. And I can also say I have been cursed to have family that's on both sides of the political world. But because of that, I've been able to, my entire life, sort of understand a perspective from one side or the other because I get it from both sides. My family also knows I don't engage in those conversations. I am willing to listen. I am willing to say, okay, I can understand where you're coming from. I can do this, I can do that. But it is a nonpartisan race, and it needs to remain that way. And I will say for a short time ago, there was a push to make this a partisan race, and I can't think of a worse thing to do for the judicial candidates. When you come into my courtroom, I don't care what party affiliation you have. It makes me no difference. What I care about is what is the important issue that you have not been able to work out. People don't come to court for fun. You come here for answers. You come here for justice. You come here so that I can hear you. And when you come to me, I'm not going to ask you. I'm not going to care. It will never become an issue on what party you were affiliated with. I'm going to hear your circumstances. I'm going to hear your case. I have a crazy attention to detail. I'm going to pay attention to all those details in your matter. And then I'm going to give you a ruling. And that ruling is going to be based on the law. I'm going to take the law as it is written. I will not be making law from the bench. That is the legislative branch. That is not my lane. I will tell you, I'm going to keep it between the mayonnaise and the mustard. That's what my parents used to say on the road. You've got the yellow and the white line. I'm going to keep it there. I'm going to stay in my lane. And I'm going to rule accordingly. So for me, it's going to be really easy. You heard how I grew up. I know how to live without money. That's not a problem. I know how to hear a voice from someone who doesn't have money. I know how to hear a voice from someone who has $1 million. It doesn't matter. What matters is making sure I am applying the law evenly, no matter who you are. And that's going to be really easy for me because, like I said, I've had to stay in that middle lane my entire life. Thank you.
Okay, as long as we have time. Okay. You bet. Yeah, you guys, how about a 2-minute wrap-up just to drive home your main points? You feel good about that? Okay. And so I believe then, trying to keep up with who's Howard. So I think it's, so Ms. Pollock, I think, are you, nope. Seth, I think you'd be first, sorry. I'm trying to keep up. Can't count, I gotta cut my fingers off, yeah.
2 minutes.
So 2 minutes for closing, yep, that'd be great.
I think I'm the best fit for this position, and I'll break that down into 2 parts, my experience and my reputation. I didn't go into it in detail earlier about my experience, but I handled medical malpractice claims, employment discrimination, officer-involved shootings. I handled a 2-year, very contentious officer-involved shooting case against an attorney named Mike Lowe, and some of you in here might know who Mike Lowe is. He is a champion for civil rights. He's pretty well known in Arkansas, and Mike Lowe has officially endorsed me. You can go to my Facebook page and you can see his endorsement. He worked under Johnny Cochran for several years. I handle lots of cases where I'm dealing with California attorneys, Chicago attorneys, which is where Mike Lowe's out of, DC attorneys, New York attorneys. I'm constantly dealing with high-profile, complex civil litigation. All right, that's what I do on a daily. It's routine. I'm constantly dealing with expert witnesses, oncologists, orthopedic surgeons, neurosurgeons, economists, accident reconstructionists, excessive force claims, accident reconstructionists. I have that experience, and I have the jury trial experience. I had a federal civil jury trial employment discrimination case where I handled everything in the case, from the workup to the case to the verdict. I handled every aspect of the jury trial by myself. I had several criminal jury trials where I prosecuted a jury trial for rape of a minor, or sexual assault of a minor. I have that experience, and you should demand that experience of your next circuit court judge. And I'll leave you with my reputation. Ask around, again, is the motto of my campaign. When I do these panels, I always leave it by saying I challenge each and every one of you to ask around until you can find someone that has something bad to say about me. And I'll go one step further tonight with you. I graduated from Webb City High School. It's an hour and 15 minutes north from here in 2002. Someone volunteer and go look at my yearbook. And if you can't find it, I'm easy to access. I will give you my yearbook. Close your eyes, point to a person, and call them up and see who I was when I was 15 years old. I'm not perfect. I'm far from it. But you're not going to find something bad about me.
Thank you. So Ms. Howard, 2 minutes to close.
Yes, thank you. There's a lot of experience sitting at this table, guys. Experience is important. I will tell you, I'm the only candidate who's had a civil jury trial in state. That's what this bench handles. But I will tell you, you got a lot of good candidates. That's a good spot to be in, okay? What is important to me is this is a job interview, okay? Some of you guys don't know this. I've actually coached Ms. Pollock's kids from 6th grade to 8th grade. Loved it, every bit of it. And when this is over, I'm gonna be friends. This is a job interview. It's not a personal thing. And it's not about, you know, what I've done or who I've been for in high school or whatever. It's about representing, or excuse me, it's about protecting all of you. On that bench, this judge, no matter who it is going to be on that bench to protect your rights. That means giving you fair trials. That means letting you come into the court. That means listening to what you have to say. My work ethic is undenied. It takes a lot to be a college athlete. That goes without saying, I think. I'm here because I know I'm the right person for this bench, based on what I've done, based on who I am. But I will say again, I would love your vote in March. You're not going to have a bad candidate, no matter who you choose. Thanks.
Ms. Pollock?
Thank you. I'm gonna take a little bit of time to tell you about my family because I didn't get to that when I was going over my resume, and I think it's important that you know that part about me too. I'm a mom of 3 boys. I've been married to Aaron Holmes from Fayetteville, Arkansas, and he made me say his name. I've been married to him for 26 years, and we have lived in the same house for 2 decades. I've worked with my law firm, Miller Butler, for 23 years. I'm on my 2nd minivan. I am, Seth is normal, I'm older and normal. Let's go with that. But I do believe that this race is about who has the comprehensive, the right kind of experience. And so what I'll tell you is that in my career, and you don't have to take my word for it, even though you could, you can look up on Court Connect, which is the Arkansas public filing system, and you can see the kinds of cases that I've handled, and you can see the kinds of cases that I am handling right now because I am the attorney for dozens of people, good people, my neighbors, my friends, and word-of-mouth referrals who come to me because I have a reputation as not just an excellent lawyer, but a good listener, and I think a practitioner that is proud of this profession, okay? I'm proud to be a lawyer. It is part of my identity. And so I've worked in the profession and out of the profession to make sure that my integrity is intact. I have friends that are in this room that I've had for years and years and years because relationships matter. Surrounding yourself with people who make you better matters. I will be fair. I will treat people well. But I also know how to do the job day one. And so I would ask you for your vote, and I do appreciate this opportunity to do it personally with each and every one of you.
I missed what you. No, either way.
Transition either way, you got it. Sorry. We didn't practice that part, I guess. I was just going to say, thank you very much, candidates. I know Ms. Teague says the same thing. Thank you for your time, and thank you. Thank you also, audience, for your questions. We wish that we did have time to get to everything and everybody's questions. They were great questions. I've got some about juvenile courts from the last round that I saved for our next panelists. Thank you again. We got about a 5-7 minute wiggle break, and we'll get our candidates for the next one up here. Yeah. little bit. You can tell I teach elementary kids. Oh, wiggle break. Yes, exactly. Ladies and gentlemen, if I could ask you to find your seats again, please. Thank you for coming in and finding your seats and coming back together quickly so that we can maximize our time with the candidates. I appreciate you. All right, well, welcome back this evening. As I've always said before, I teach elementary school, fourth graders, 10-year-olds, so I can stand up here and wait. But that's okay, we're ready to go. It does matter. The quicker we go in between our transitions, thank you very much, so we can maximize our time with our candidates. So our second panel of candidates tonight are vying for that nonpartisan position of circuit judge, and they are in, did I write it down right this time? Divisions 3 and 8. So we actually have the 3 candidates for Division 8, and the 2 candidates for Division, no, did I get that right?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. I just seated them opposite of the way I wrote it. I apologize for Division 3. So April Rai-Shai is out here, and her opponent, Maria McSparrett, reached back out to us and sends her regrets. She unfortunately had previously scheduled out-of-state travel, and that's why she's not here. But because they're all running a similar court with juvenile court, we thought that they made a great panel up here together. Our District 8 candidates, Joanne Clary, Circuit Judge Dawn Egan, and Judge Diane Warren are here. Thank you again for your dedication to public service by running for office, and thank you for sharing your time with us here this evening. And so we can get right to it. I'll turn it back over to Katie. We will hand out our index cards if you've got any other questions for these candidates, but time will be tight, so we'll get as many as we can.
So again, we'll get started, and y'all, we will rotate who answers first, but we'll start on this end. So again, Ms. Clary, you have 2 minutes. You want to just do opening remarks and introduce yourself.
Hi, thank you guys for coming. Thanks to the League of Women Voters for having us here today. Can you guys hear me okay? Better, okay. I don't even need this mic. So, thanks to the League of Women's Voters for having us here today. This has been my favorite format we've done so far because the juvenile division is different than the other judges that are running here today. Again, my name is Joanne. I am the Deputy Prosecuting Attorney for Washington and Madison County, currently assigned to the Juvenile Delinquency Division. And delinquency cases are when kids commit criminal acts. So modern day, we have anywhere from your run-of-the-mill shoplifting to guns in the hands of kids. My professional background is I have been practicing law for over 16 years. I started my career as an assistant state attorney in the state of Florida, prosecuting juvenile and adult felonies and misdemeanors. I also represented the state of Florida when they removed kids from homes that were at risk or had suffered abuse, abandonment, or neglect. I'm a mom of 3. My oldest is 8. I've got one at 7, and my youngest is 4. So myself and Mr. Creed, we are certainly in the trenches. I spend my days on the phone all day, every day with SROs, detectives, anybody that has an interest in kids. My model is a redemption and reward model. So our kids make mistakes. They end up in our court system. And I want to encourage and challenge them to do better, to prove themselves, prove that they can behave better. And I think we set ourselves up for a lot of success if we can dump services into the kids while we have them as juveniles and prevent them from committing crimes when they go into adulthood. Thank you.
Judge Egan, again, 2 minutes to introduce yourself.
Thank you. I'm Judge Dawn Egan, and I was appointed to the bench by Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders to finish out Judge Zimmerman's position when she retired last year in the end of February. So I've been on the bench now for just shy of a year. My background is that before I became judge, I was an attorney ad litem representing children in foster care and abuse and neglect cases. I represented approximately 5,000 children in the 14 years that I was an attorney ad litem. I investigated their situations, I spoke with them, I worked with caseworkers and CASA, and brought truth to the court so that the court could make decisions as to what was in the children's best interest. Prior to being an attorney ad litem, I was a juvenile court prosecutor for 6 years. I did delinquencies and FINS cases, which are family needed services cases. I also did divorce cases and criminal cases in my own private practice. Prior to coming to law school, I was a mom, stay-at-home mom for 5 years, and before that, I was a crime scene investigator and latent fingerprint examiner. So that's my story. I went to school in California at UC Irvine. I graduated from Arkansas, here in Fayetteville. I graduated with my law degree. Thank you.
Thanks. Judge Warren, 2 minutes for opening remarks.
Good evening, and thank you to the League of Women Voters and the library for this opportunity to share more about the candidacy. I'm originally from Colorado. I got my undergraduate and master's degrees from Colorado State University, moved to Indiana, where I got my law degree at Indiana University, and then moved to Washington County in 1997 with my husband, Ron, who got a job here at the university. We've raised 2 children here. Shortly after we moved here in 1999, I took a job with the state of Arkansas as one of the first attorneys ad litem. That's an attorney for children in foster care. And I represented the best interest of children in foster care for about 11 years full-time. And then I opened up my own law firm and expanded my advocacy to serve as an attorney ad litem for children in domestic relations cases. And so I advocated for both kids in foster care and domestic relations cases. I was then elected to the bench in 2020, and I was the first person elected to the newly created Division 8 back in 2020. Since then, I have served as judge of Division 8, where I handled juvenile, domestic relation, and probate matters. I have worked very diligently and hard to resource the court, to hire staff, advocate for staff, hire staff, train them, come up with systems and procedures to create what is now a second juvenile court in our district. And I feel that very privileged to have served in that capacity. I think it's I'm humbled by the support that I've had, and I am looking forward to a second term. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shy.
Well, thank you so much for having us. My name is April Shy, and I am running for juvenile judge. That is Circuit Court Division 3. So it's a different division than the women sitting beside me. Many of you will know this division, this court, as the court where Stacey Zimmerman was judge for close to 30 years. And she retired last February, and as was previously mentioned, Judge Dawn Egan was appointed to fill out her term. I have worked in this court for about 28 years. I'm a certified attorney ad litem, and I know that's been mentioned by a few people up here, but just for those of you who don't know what that is a certification for an attorney, a licensed attorney, that specializes in representing abused and neglected children. And so that is an attorney that represents children in foster care. So I have done that. I've represented children in foster care as an attorney ad litem for 28 years. I've also represented children in what we call FINS cases. That stands for Family in Need of Services. Those are cases like truancy, substance abuse, runaway behavior. I've done that for 28 years. I've also had a private law practice over 30 years where I've specialized in family law and child welfare law. Prior to doing all this, when I first got out of law school, my first job was deputy prosecuting attorney in Carroll County, Arkansas. That's Berryville, Green Forest, Eureka Springs. I was a deputy prosecuting attorney there where I handled felonies, misdemeanors, and all the juvenile cases that came through that office. So I have worked in juvenile court on some level the entirety of my 32-year career. A little bit about me. I'm a lifelong Arkansan. I was born and raised in Central Arkansas, came here for college and law school, and have been so blessed to be able to stay here in Northwest Arkansas, raise a family, and work. And so I've been in Northwest Arkansas for close to 40 years, and I appreciate you all being here because juvenile court, I want to say this about juvenile court, both of these divisions. It is a very important court, and very critical decisions are made in that court. So thank you for being here to learn about these positions.
Thank you all. Again, we're going to switch gears and we'll rotate who starts. And now it's 3 minutes to respond. She'll still give you your 1 minute timer. So we'll start Judge Egan. How do you balance the safety of the community with the best interests or rehabilitation of the juvenile?
I make sure that parents know what they're doing as far as their children, to keep them safe and to get them back, because a lot of in our foster care cases, the goal is to return the children to a fit parent. And so it's our job as a court system and the lawyers and the judge to make sure that the parents have those resources and that they're able to participate in services so that they can get their children back. As far as the community is concerned, Ms. Clary mentioned earlier about a lot of gun crime that's going on. When we have a thing that we're supposed to fill out that gives you the number and whether or not a kid should be put in JDC on the front end when they're called from the police. And I have a rule in my court, I don't care what that says. If a kid's got a gun, he's going to JDC. Because it's important to the community that the community is safe until we can figure out why he had the gun, whether it was loaded, whether he was threatening somebody with it. To protect the community, that child needs to be in JDC until we can figure out what's going on. The best interest of children, did that for 14 years. That was my job, was to figure out what was in the best interest of my clients and let the court know. I think it's really important. You have to look at everything. You have to look at the parenting. You have to look at the child in their school and other people that are in their lives that can help go around them and pour into them so that they're able to do well. And sometimes that means that we're going to get everything together, the parent's going to do everything they need, and the kid's going to go home to a fit home. That's what we really, really want. That doesn't always happen. So sometimes if that doesn't happen, then we try to put them with a family member. Sometimes that's difficult because sometimes the family members have the same problems as the actual parent does. So sometimes through DHS, we're not allowed to place with those people, but we try. And sometimes kids stay in their foster homes and they're adopted in their foster homes. Sometimes a family member, a family friend, a teacher will take a child in, and we might do a subsidized guardianship where the parents still have their parental rights and they can still come and see the kids. And so it's not as final as termination of parental rights and having them be adopted. Thank you.
So Judge Warren, the question was, how do you balance the safety of the community with the best interests and rehabilitation of the juvenile?
So I hear that question largely in the delinquency cases. There are three main. So sorry.
There you go.
I hear that question mostly in the guise of the delinquency cases. There are three main types of juvenile cases that come before the court. The first are the abuse and neglect cases, or what we call dependency and neglect cases. Those are the ones that involve foster care. The second type are what was referenced, the family in need of services cases, which are largely truancy cases, but they also might be incorrigible youth or one that is not following the reasonable rules of their parent. And then the third type of case that comes before the juvenile court are the delinquency cases, and that's where the youth is alleged to have committed an act that would be a crime if they were an adult. And so in that delinquency realm is where we really face this question of the public safety versus the rehabilitation of the youth. And the main difference between the adult criminal court and the juvenile delinquency court is that the main purpose of the juvenile court is to rehabilitate the youth so that that youth becomes pro-social and able to follow our social norms, which we have as laws, by the time they become adults. And so we have a whole series of laws and assessments that we follow in order to make this balance. Ultimately, it's a question of judgment. But the first priority is to keep the public safe. That is our first priority. Our next idea is that we try to keep the public safe with the least restrictive means possible for the youth. And so what we are trying to do is assess the potential of risk to the community, and then what is the least restrictive way that we can make sure that that youth is not putting others in danger. And so we have developed a number of different ways of trying to not incarcerate the youth and still protect public safety. So we have implemented tools like an electronic monitoring device. And so we can place the youth on house arrest with an ankle monitor if we have a responsible adult who is going to be able to supervise that youth and make sure that they're following the rules. We have, we can sometimes put in place intensive family services or other kinds of mechanisms so that the youth does not have to go to JDC. The tool that Judge Egan was referencing is what we call the RAY. It's an assessment that is used when the youth is arrested. The first call of a police officer is to the on-call juvenile court worker who uses that assessment. And the reason following the assessment is important is because it has been developed to try to eradicate or lessen our potential for inherent unconscious bias. And so we do use those tools in order to make that decision about whether or not this youth can be safely released or whether they need to be detained.
Thank you. So Ms. Shai, again, it's how do you balance the safety of the community with the best interests or rehabilitation of the juvenile?
Thank you. Judge Warren stole all my answers.
Yeah,
So
it's
my
hard
answer
when you have
may be
four.
brief or very repetitive, but the stated goal of juvenile court in the Arkansas Code is rehabilitation. And obviously, what we want to strive for in juvenile court is to correct whatever deficits there are, whatever problems there are, to treat whatever issues there are, so that this individual becomes a productive adult member of our community at some point. And so that is the stated goal in the Arkansas Code. Obviously, keeping the community safe is very important and is very much a responsibility of the judge in many ways. And so I think that when we have situations, as they said, usually this is going to be more indicated in the delinquency cases where a child is brought to detention or is arrested or is committing a delinquent act, a criminal act by a minor. You look at a lot of things, I think, and they've kind of alluded to this somewhat. Are they in a mental health crisis? So minors, like adults who are sometimes committing acts, are sometimes in a mental health crisis. They have been without their medication. They are having whatever situation. So certainly you look at to see if that's a problem at that moment and what can you do to diffuse that. Do they need acute treatment right then? Obviously they maybe need to get back on their medications. Do they need to see what type of counselor or person do they need to be seeing right then to hopefully help with whatever acute mental health situation we're having? Absent that, as Judge Warren alluded to, there are various alternatives to detention that can, in many cases, continue to keep our community safe. And so, as she said, one of those is the electronic monitoring. So I think Judge Zimmerman used to tell people, we can track you like a deer. But you can know if that person is where they're supposed to be and where you've told them to be. Most importantly, the judge needs to tell them where they're allowed to be. And then one part of juvenile court is that you have staff, you have probation officers and people that can work these cases and check on these situations. So electronic monitor is one of them. A mandatory reporting to your FINS officer or probation officer. So that might be something that normally is done monthly or every other month, depending on how well you're doing. But in a situation where you're worried about community safety, you can require more intensive reporting. You can require them to call their probation officer daily or their parent to contact and say, Jim Bob's doing just fine. He's home today. He went to school today, whatever the case may be. And likewise, you have staff, probation officer and all that who can obviously check in as well. So you can do some more intensive things like that. We also have other services through different agencies that can offer intensive in-home services and be in the home 2 or 3 times a week. Those sometimes take a little longer to get in there. That's not something, you can do right away, but we do have other alternatives.
Yep, thank you. So, Ms. Clary, it's the same question. How do you balance the safety of the community with the best interests or rehabilitation of the juvenile?
So I agree,
Yeah,
right? We've
fair
heard
enough.
a lot. I agree. This balance here, this is kind of the crux of what makes juvenile different than the other judge races. In other courtrooms, when you're dealing with criminal cases, the judge is going to deal with community safety and processing that case. They're going to leave once they sentence the defendant, they're going to leave the rehabilitation and the punishment stuff to the jail people as a whole other division. In juvenile, it's not. The judge that's hearing these kids' cases is the judge that's going to coordinate and supervise the programs that are rehabilitating them. And the crux of this issue is weeding out the high-risk kids from the low-risk kids. They're 2 totally separate processes. We do not want our low-risk kids in custody with our high-risk kids. I don't want to give anybody a free pass to criminal college, and that is oftentimes what JDC is. This comes down to a judgment call. It comes down to knowing the nature of these crimes. It comes down to talking to the SROs that are responsible for these kids. It comes down to talking to the parents in the hallway, in the courtroom. And it comes down to creativity, ingenuity, and energy. This is the period where we have the opportunity to grab these kids' attention and dump a bunch of services in. Thank you.
So we've kind of waded into this, but there were 3 kind of related questions, and so I'm going to dig a little further just in terms of programs, community partnerships, alternatives to detention. You've mentioned several, but it's a chance to go a little bit deeper, and then part of this is also what mechanisms, if you want to explain some of the programs, what mechanisms are in place to provide oversight and ensure that they're being used consistently and effectively, and then also there was a question on funding. How are those funded? So it's kind of wide open. It's a lot, but we're just talking about alternatives to detention and some of the effective programs that are available or things you might want to start. Judge Warren.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for this question because before 2020, we only had 7 judges. In 2020, Division 8 was created, and it was created in part to take off some of the load of the juvenile cases. And so half the juvenile cases were given to Division 8. But when Division 8 was created, the quorum court did not fund or make provision for any juvenile officers. And juvenile court is, as has been mentioned, very different because in juvenile court, the juvenile judge is the supervisor, ultimate supervisor of the juvenile officers who monitor the youth who are under the court's supervision. And so, when I was elected in 2021, it was COVID. So the first year, all we did was keep the doors open and keep things going. All of the juvenile officers were hired, fired, managed, supervised by Division 3, Judge Zimmerman. So when the doors opened back up in 2022, then I advocated and got the quorum court to actually designate staff to the Division 8. And we had to build out our space for them to operate. So we were building a court from the ground up. So we had to hire staff, we had to train staff, we had to build out the space for them to operate. And then the exciting part is building programs, because I think that's the heart of juvenile court, is to try to get services in there. And I'm really proud of the fact that we've been able to create partnerships with community organizations who share our mission, which is youth development. So we have partnered with 4-H, and they have created they bring their life skills training to us, and so our youth can get some life skills training, resume building, preparing for a job, etc., which gives them purpose and sees their potential. And the beauty of that is that it is already a funded program, costs the taxpayers no new money. The second partnership we have is with the Service Learning Initiative out of the University of Arkansas. Dr. Angela Mensah has created an award-winning program that teaches young ladies the impact that their social media use has on their body image. And so that reduces the risk of them being trafficked. It reduces the risk of them sharing inappropriate pictures on camera. And again, no cost to the taxpayer because the university is already tasked with doing that, and we just use their services. Third program is partnering with an art therapist who comes in, helps the youth process their trauma. And then they create artwork, which we use to decorate the hallways of the courtroom, which gives affirming messages to those who are in there. So some of those programs are geared toward the low-risk kids, and some of them are geared toward the high-risk kids, and we don't have them in the same room for all the reasons that Ms. Clary mentioned. And so those are 3 of the programs that we've created. We also have a Juvenile Court 101 program that we've created in partnership with the Sheriff's Office. So those are just a few of the things that we've done, and we use programs that are already funded, so no more cost to the taxpayer. Thank you for the question.
So again, this is part of 3 different cards, so I may not do it quite the same. It's a lot, but just referencing programs and community partnerships as alternatives to detention. And again, 2 of the pieces to that are what mechanisms are in place to provide oversight, ensure that alternative programs are used consistently effectively, and then also what are the primary sources of funding.
Okay. I think one role of the juvenile judge that is critical is to seek out, as Judge Warren mentioned, opportunities, programs, mechanisms as alternatives to detention in the community that are potentially already up and running, already funded through another organization or agency, and try to work to be able to refer some of our youth to them. I think it is pie in the sky thinking to think that, oh, we're going to create these 10 programs or we're going to go ask the county to fund them. And I think most of us know that that's just not going to happen. So I think the best approach when possible is to seek out existing programs and try to connect with them. And obviously you would be referring appropriate youth to those programs. So they may take different ages. They may take, different offense types or different types of offenders. So I think that's critical. As far as oversight, once again, juvenile court is very different than the other circuit courts. It's kind of like drug court in that the other courts will have a judge, a secretary, and a case coordinator, and a bailiff. If you go to their office, those are the 4 people you're going to see. When you come to either of these juvenile courts, you're going to see a judge, a case coordinator, a secretary, and a bailiff, and then you're going to see about, 15, 20 other people in terms of intake officers, probation officers, FINS officers, and other staff. So I think with regard to the oversight, that's where that comes in. I think the court orders that, or the probation officer or the FINS officers make those referrals, and then those are the people who kind of oversee whether, in fact, the youth and their families are attending those regularly. Are they showing up? Is it helping? Those kind of things. So I think maybe that's where the oversight comes in. And then I'm watching the sign. I was telling myself I was just going to watch the timer during this round so I wouldn't get cut off. And then funding, I think I already covered that it is best if you can look to something that's already existing. And I think that would be a very important, like I said, important role with the juvenile judge.
Super, thank you so much. So, Ms. Clary, you want me to read again? You feel comfortable?
No, ma'am, I think I got it.
I'd be glad to.
I think there's a lot of answers here.
Yeah.
The alternatives there to detention, the alternatives to detention are super key. They're really important. Our high-risk kids, we need to use detention to slow them down, to stop them in their tracks. They're engaging in dangerous behavior for themselves, dangerous behavior for the community. And we need to use that time in detention to slow down, figure out what's going on at home, figure out what's going on at school, get players involved, figure out a plan where we can get this kid back into the community safely and set up for success. Now, our low-risk kids, we need to do the exact opposite. We need to tap into ingenuity, energy, and our community resources to engage these kids. I have so many ideas for programs, you guys. I'd love to start a gun program. I've talked to local law enforcement. I've talked to federal law enforcement with our FBI field agents. They're ready and willing and able to come and volunteer their time to teach gun safety to our kids, especially our boys who are really kind of naturally drawn to guns. And some of these kids without the right influences in their life, they're interested in guns, they're curious, they find them, they play with them, it's dangerous. A juvenile that is taught the right way to properly handle a weapon is far less likely to engage in gun play or those dangerous cases. I want to do a baby court. I want to tap into the grant power of the University of Arkansas to achieve that. When I say baby court, I want to do a program where we focus on the development of children. Those babies' brains are developing, and they're going to grow up, and they're going to be our adults. And we can make sure that they're having those connections with the people that are caring for them, and those empathy and compassion and all those great brain synapses are syncing and developing. It's going to give us long-term success. I've had the privilege, on top of running for judge, doing my normal thing, having 3 kids under 8, I'm filling in for my colleague who just had a baby, and for the last month I've taken over drug court, veterans court, mental health court, and there may be another one that I can't remember because I've been in court all 4 days this week.
Because you haven't slept.
But I've noticed a couple things. One, we have a lot of substance abuse programs for adults. We have almost none for children. It is pathetic. We need Alateen for our kids because I've also noticed that this substance abuse problem is generational. The people in drug court are my parents in my cases. We need to do something new, guys. We need Alateen to support our kids that have grown up in substance abuse, to teach them new coping skills, new way to live. Further, I've also been speaking to a pastor. This pastor has a prison program where he ministers to prisoners. I've asked him to translate that program to our kids in JDC. He almost cried when I asked him. He's been praying about it. He is dying to get to our kids in JDC. He's going to create a program where he introduces himself while we have him in detention, and they lead up into a mentorship program. He's introduced me to a former gang member who's turned a pastor who is mentoring kids who are at risk of gangs or who are in gangs. Guys, the community wants to help. We just need to get out there and ask them.
Thank you. So Judge Egan, you get the unenviable last position on this one when lots has been talked about. But again, just programs and community partnerships, alternatives to detention, and then mechanisms in place to provide oversight, and then also discuss funding for those programs.
Okay. So we have several programs in Division 3 where I'm currently serving. We have the YRC, which is the Youth Reporting Center, and our employees go and they pick them up from school. They bring them to the YRC, they give them a meal, they make sure they're doing their homework, they do community service, and then our staff takes them back to their homes so that they're not on the street with nothing to do. So they're being watched and they're getting to buy in to their communities by doing community service. And so we think that that's really important that they do that part. And it's also important that they get a meal because maybe some of them aren't going to get a meal when they get home. We also have Girls Circle that helps with girls with their self-esteem and teaches them to be young ladies and grow up into responsible women. We also have a new recovery group that we're doing with our teens. As Ms. Clary mentioned, very often, if a child has a problem with drugs or alcohol, their parents do too. And so it's important that we have this recovery for the kids because also, as Ms. Clary mentioned, when I was first a prosecutor, we had a couple of places that we could send kids for drug abuse. We don't have them anymore. They're gone. So that's why we decided to have this program so that we could put some services in for our kiddos so that they can get over the fact that they're using drugs and figure out what they should be doing that's different. I know there's another one that I'm forgetting. Oh, we have the 885 program. They do, I think it's bi-monthly. They get together and they go, and they do community service as well. And they're also watched. And we also have, what's the other one? Oh, the Outdoor Adventure Club. And those kiddos, they get to go hiking and fishing and doing all those things. Obviously, that's a lower risk group that we use. As far as funding, a lot of our programs are funded through grants. Our directors and leads work very hard to get grants that will cover these things. And as Ms. Clary mentioned, with the babies court, when I first got on the bench, I contacted DHS. We have the 0 to 3 Safe Babies Court. Unfortunately, DHS lost their funding, so we'll have to find another way to pay for it, but I'm looking at grants to possibly pay for that so we can continue that service. There are only 3 courts in Arkansas that have the Safe Babies Court, and so even their programs have slowed down. And with Safe Babies Court, you have hearings almost every 3 months. You do a lot of staffing, and you have the parents visiting with their children more. I have to stop.
Yep.
Thank you.
And I guess I'm going to go off script for just a second and ask the 2 juvenile sitting judges. This was part of the same set of questions. Do both juvenile courts share similar programs or not necessarily?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. Okay. Thank you. Yep.
Can I answer that?
Yep.
All of the programs that have been created in Division 8 are open to any juvenile who is part of the juvenile court system. For most of the term that I have been sitting, Division 8 youth have been able to take part in Division 3 programs. That has recently changed, and we have been informed that Division 8 youth will no longer be able to take advantage of Division 3 services.
Can I respond to that? That changed recently, and it changed because we were having a problem with staffing. Because as I said, all of our programs are staffed by our staff. And so we had asked for help in staffing. We were told no, so we said, well, we're going to have to focus on our own kiddos because we're the ones putting the time and effort of our staff into those programs.
Thank you both for clarifying. So Ms. Shai, we're going to start with you on this one. What do you feel are the biggest changes you think we need to make to the criminal justice system? Pretty wide open.
To the criminal justice system or the juvenile justice system?
I'd feel better if we kind of focus on juveniles.
Okay. Okay. So with regard to the juvenile justice system, I think what I'm going to speak specifically to Washington, to our district.
Yes,
because
Washington,
that's
Madison,
where I
perfect.
am and what I can speak
You
most
bet.
accurately to. I think the biggest challenge facing our district is population growth. So when I started as an ad litem and doing FINS cases 28 years ago, we had FINS court half a day, 1 day a month. So one afternoon a month was our FINS day. It was pretty sweet. Then as it has evolved, we went to a full day a month. Then we went to 2 full days a month, then every Monday of the month. Now, as you know, we have 2 judges doing FINS court a full day each week. So basically 2 full days of FINS cases. And that's just FINS cases. I'm not talking about delinquency and all that. So clearly, our population has grown, and I think that's a real challenge for our juvenile court system. I liken the juvenile judges to a soccer goalie who is trying to catch or deflect everything being thrown at them. And 28 years ago, there were only maybe 3 or 4 people with balls headed toward the goalie, and now there's all kinds of kids or people out there. Our school population, if you look back to 28 years ago, we had the 2 big districts, Fayetteville, Springdale, which have obviously grown in the last 28 years. But look at places like Farmington, Prairie Grove, those populations. So the population is just so different, and it's going to continue to grow. And so I think it's critical that that we are able to handle all of those cases, and that in administering the juvenile court, that you are aware of the number of cases that need to be handled, and that you are very cognizant of how to give the cases the attention they need. One thing that a lot of people don't give thought to, attorneys can work 50, 60, 70 hours a week. We often do. You can work on a Sunday afternoon. You can go home for dinner on Tuesday and go back to the office. We often do. Court is pretty much limited to like 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. You can't really tell people, y'all go home for dinner with your families and we'll pick this up at 7. Y'all go to church and come on up here after church and we'll have court Sunday afternoon. You don't have that luxury. Really, your court time is a very limited amount of time. And so I think it's critical and very difficult when you're talking about the challenges to administer that court docket to where you're making the absolute best use of court time. Obviously, the judge can work as much as she needs to. She can come in on Sunday afternoon. She can work at night. But making real good use of that court time.
So Ms. Clary again, yep. The question was, what are the biggest changes we need to make or challenges to the juvenile court system?
So a lot of you guys were here last night, and you had the opportunity to hear the prosecutor race do their panel. My boss, Dennis Dean, was on the panel, and when he was asked about the future, what things he thought the office was moving in the direction of, he brought up juvenile issues, and I almost screamed from the back of the room, because I have been talking his ear off, and anybody who will listen to me, that juvenile crime has changed. It is not what it was 30 years ago. It was not what it was 15 years ago. Our kids are in crisis. They're living lives on their phones that are not the kids that are sitting in your living room. And they're translating that behavior into our regular world. Dennis spoke about guns in the hands of kids. I'd submit to you that it is our new kind of juvenile currency. Drugs are too easy to get. Marijuana is too easy to get. They get it from their parents these days. They're targeting cars to steal guns. I had a case where a gun was stolen from a house party in a gated neighborhood in Pinnacle Hills. It was in the hands of a 16-year-old on a high-speed chase with police in a stolen car who was brandishing it out the window. We're there, guys. I was the generation of Columbine. When I was in high school, Columbine happened. And I was horrified at the thought of going to school with metal detectors. Last spring, I went around every school district in Washington, Madison County, and I begged them to get metal detectors. And if they couldn't afford it, I begged them to get those fake ones that at least would, do something. Dennis also talked about our AI and technology being used by now kids. And guys, they're smarter than we are on computers. I don't care how good you are, they're better. They're using AI and technology to take pictures of their schoolmates in school uniforms or in regular clothes in the gymnasium, and they're making them into pornographic images. And that's almost juvenile, you could understand that. But then they're going on Discord and they're trading them for real images of pornography. We got to do something. Since being at the office, I've created a notification system. It's allowed under statute, but it had never been placed in Washington County before. It allows our office to directly communicate with the school system about high-risk kids. That way the kids in school with those kids can be kept safer, and our defendant children can be set up for success. I've also moved to an electronic filing system. I agree with April. Like it or not, Northwest Arkansas is growing every single day. When I started in crime, I had caseloads of 800 cases at a time. I'm ready, guys. Nobody can outwork me, and nobody can move as fast as I can. I'm ready to help our kids. Big caseloads, small caseloads. Court when the sun comes up. I'll be in court when the sun goes down. I came from the school of Judge Zimmerman, and I'm ready to work. I have kids in school with your kids, and I don't want to cruise my way to retirement, guys. I'm invested in this. I want to roll up my sleeves and get this right. Thank you.
So Judge Egan, again, what do you see as the biggest changes that we need to make in the juvenile justice system?
Well, I was really surprised yesterday when I was watching the news, and I found out that at the Capitol, we had lawmakers, judges, and community advocates that all met to finalize a comprehensive plan to reform the juvenile system. And one thing that totally surprised me is that 80% of our kids that are in DYS, which is the Division of Youth Services, and that's basically the hardest thing that we can do to them other than charging them as an adult or an extended juvenile jurisdiction child. 80% read at the 3rd grade level. So we're not preparing these kids to go forward in life and to do well and to be successful. And so, yes, that was something I found out last night. So that's something that is really weighing on my heart today. As I think of these kids, and I've represented a lot of kids in foster care. Most of those don't end up at DYS. but I never thought in terms of their reading ability and how that could totally cripple how they go through life as an adult. So I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to work with my staff and figure out a way that we can help those children to read better, and so that we're not putting children in DYS, which is basically kid prison, which is not a good thing, with such a low reading rate that they're not going to be successful when they get out.
Judge Warren?
Speaking very locally, one of our biggest needs in terms of juvenile justice is drug treatment. We do not currently have any residential drug treatment programs for adolescents, and we need them. Unfortunately, we do. And so that is one specific need that we have. I would agree that we have a growing problem of gang-related violence and gun-related violence. The Supreme Court just handed down, was affirmed on an appeal that came down where a juvenile was charged as an adult. This was a 16-year-old who was on probation for a gun-related act when he committed another gun-related act. He was charged as an adult. The defense tried to move it to juvenile court, and it was one of those unfortunate situations where the question before the judge, when you're in that position, is can this youth be rehabilitated if the case remains in juvenile court before the court loses jurisdiction over them at 21? And so that's the question you have to make. You have to look at the services you have available and the history of the youth and whether or not this youth can be rehabilitated. And my decision in that instance was no. This youth, it's as much as a mother, I don't like the idea of charging a 16-year-old as an adult. There was a very serious crime with a history and services already provided, and so that's what needed to happen. But we do need to make sure that we have services for these youth. And so drug treatment, for one, is something that needs to happen. We need a lot of parental support because we have a lot of absent parents. We have parents absent because of immigration issues. We have parents absent because of their own mental health or substance abuse issues. So we need to get some more services in place with regard to that. And then I would say the other thing really niche that we need, honestly, is we need something in between JDC and home. We used to have emergency shelters, we used to have temporary shelters, and the federal money that supported those went away. And I think that it's unfortunate because we have a lot of times where youth are involved in domestic family dynamic issues, and they get charged with terroristic threatening or domestic battery because it's inter-family dispute. And we need a place for the youth to go to be able to chill and have some time out and figure out what services we can put in place in the family that's not JDC. And we're lacking that kind of in-between kind of thing. So that's sort of a niche, very local kind of thing. And then on the broader level, we need to be mindful of our school to prison pipeline. We need to be very vigilant that we're not criminalizing teen behavior and creating more of a problem than we had coming in.
Thank you so much. Because we're up against a finite time here at the library, we'll do closings. Probably going to shorten that if we can keep that to 1 minute, but just kind of drive home your main points, what you want voters to remember about you and your candidacy.
Guys, I want you to remember about me is that you've heard us all speak today. Picture yourself as 16 and think about the way we all spoke to you, who would get through to you. My first internship was at Legal Aid in Broward County, that's Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and I was assigned to the Public Housing Division, and my job was to make sure to represent people that were losing their housing. So they told me, you have to go to the high-rise housing, it was 14 stories, put a notice on everyone's door. No one's gonna open for you. Just tape the notice to the door and tell them, you got court tomorrow, if you don't show up, you're getting evicted. So that's how I started. It was scary. I ran fast. No one opened their door for me, and the ones that did were not very nice. It was a semester internship. By the end of the semester, not only were people opening their doors, people were making me dinner, baked goods, hugging me, high fives. I knew kids' names. I'd won them over, and I'll win your kids over. I talk to them like I talk to you, plain, upfront, and straight. That's what our kids need. We don't need another JDC. We need to engage the kids when they're in our courtroom, and I want to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
So in my courtroom, I believe in efficiency, compassion, and being committed to people. I want everyone that comes into my courtroom to feel like they're listened to. I've moved things off of the bench so that I can actually look at every person when they're testifying, because I think it's important, especially parents who may be losing their kid to a termination of parental rights hearing, that I'm listening to them the entire time, and they know that someone's listening. I think that's very important. I think that sometimes that doesn't happen as well, and so I've made that my mission to make sure that I'm looking at every parent, every child, every person who's testifying in my court. I'm cognizant of people's time. In the past, people would come in and then there'd be a dismissal from the prosecuting attorney's office, or for some reason the case was being dropped. And these parents, who almost always are indigent, come into this court to just be told, oh, well, just kidding, go home. We're not following, we're not going to have your case. And so I think that that's rude, and I don't think that it's helpful. So that's how I run my court now. I want to be efficient and compassionate.
Thank you. Judge Warren?
I have spent my career in law in the child welfare field. I have extensive experience in the trenches in the areas of juvenile domestic relations and probate law, which my court handles. I was privileged to be elected in 2020, and I have worked very diligently, intentionally, and consistently to build a second juvenile court. I'm very proud of the foundation that we have laid. I think in a second term, I could build on that foundation and really make a difference in our community by helping to transform these juveniles and rehabilitate them by being transparent, efficient, compassionate, listening to the cases, discerning what credible evidence is, and issuing orders that are consistent with the evidence and based and grounded in law. I would very much appreciate your support in a second term, and thank you again for coming out tonight.
Again, Ms. Shai, final thoughts.
Thank you. I would just say that experience matters. And as I mentioned, I have been working in juvenile court on some level for the entirety of my 32-year legal career. And I've specifically been in Washington County Juvenile Court for the past 28 years. I have represented over 5,000 children in foster care. I've won the CASA Award. I don't know if you all know what CASA is, Court Appointed Special Advocates. I've won the CASA Award for Attorney Ad Litem of the Year for the state of Arkansas. I've won the CASA Award for Northwest Arkansas Attorney Ad Litem of the Year. And I've also received the CASA Duke Service Award for 20 years of advocacy. So I have worked closely with these entities and have been recognized for my work in the child welfare and juvenile court system. I think it's important that you have someone who's actually practiced law in this court. I think it's critical that you have someone who has practiced law in this court for a long time. It is important not only to know the law, but to know a lot about child development and family dynamics in this court. Remember, shy, but she's not shy.
All right. Well, I'd like to start off by just saying thank you all to our audience members here in person or online. Thanks for doing your part to being an empowered voter. When making sure that you're talking to others about the importance of getting out to vote March 3rd, or early voting starts February 17th, you can please direct them to what I consider really complimentary resources. The League has a great website called vote411.org. It's housed by our national league, but you can dive down really fast by typing in your address and getting every state race from the tippy top of the ballot down to school board members, every county. We have every race on there. You can figure out who's on your ballot throughout the entire state of Arkansas. And that really is complementary with our Secretary of State's website, Voter View, and that you can check your own registration and check your sample ballots. And so speaking of ballots, we have ballot types this year. What we do every year, this is nonpartisan that we listen to, but in addition to that, we do have primary races. So when you go in to vote this year, you'll be asked which ballot would you like to pull. And so there are, you can choose to be the nonpartisan, a Democrat ballot, or a Republican primary. Of course, for all three of those ballots, you'll have all of the nonpartisan candidates that we've heard tonight and the other nonpartisan races, but then it'll be party specific. If you wanted to pull the, anybody can pull the Democrat ballot. If you wanted to pull the Republican primary ballot, you need to be a registered Republican or a registered as optional. And if you wish to change your registration right then and there, it might take you a little bit longer when you go into the voting booth, but our County Election Commission has said that they will let you do that so you can pull the ballot that you want to vote on, so just plan for that. Again, Voter View and vote411.org are great resources to help you plan for your voting. I really want to thank and show my appreciation for our candidates here tonight and remind you that we had combined this panel. So we have our Division 8 and Division 3 candidate. So we have the Division 8, those three are vying for the one office, and our Division 3 candidate also has an opponent who was unable to be here tonight. Just keep that in mind when you're filling out your ballots. I learned so much about your positions from both of these. I've been involved with the league thank you for sharing your knowledge. I've been involved with our local league for about 9 years now, and I don't remember the last time we had these nonpartisan judicials, and I think going forward, we're gonna make sure to educate all of ourselves this way. So thank you for being a part of that tonight. Yeah. And I also want to recognize, of course, again, and thank our moderator, Katie Teague. Right, she, and our timekeeper, yes, and our timekeeper, Glenda. And all of our candidates do a great job of monitoring that. So make sure that you've got your calendars cleared in October for when we come up for our November elections too. I want to point out that Katie, she does a great job of researching what these offices and these candidates are running for and how to represent you, and combining that with her extensive knowledge of Washington County and the state of Arkansas. She's an editor for the Arkansas Voter Guide that will come out before all general elections. And
Not an editor for the vote.
nope.
That's lovely, but no.
Okay.
I love it, and I help promote
And the ballot issues one, is that how you do? Or maybe I
it. I
guess
help do education on it.
you do the education of those, yes. Okay, thank you. But you are involved with helping,
Same responsibility.
but your offices and what you work for do those things. So she comes out of that fertile field there. Thank you. All right. Let's see, what else did I have to say to thank our candidates? Thank you to the library. Thank you very much. In appreciation for our librarians and their staff that are here for us tonight. We're about 5 minutes over, so any kind of mingling or questions and things that you've got with each other or questions for us, even if you could head into the lobby to do that, we can start to break down. But the lobby is still open for a little bit now. Anything else I forgot? Thank you. Yes, if you want to get back and hear anything you need here tonight, it's all been recorded on their YouTube channel and their Facebook page, and you can share with anybody you need, and you can learn about all the candidates from our forums tonight and last night. Thank you. Good night. There's also an earring. If somebody has lost a gold hoop earring from this area.
Mine has fallen out twice.
I already looked and I was like, this is not yours because
A miracle.
I love yours.